Hello guys, welcome to my channel. I hope everything's okay in your life. In this video you will find an updated version of series I prepared in the previous years. You're in luck for listening to the explanation because I felt the need to quickly discuss the content of the video. Each video will feature an interview with a class master about either the Succession or Awakening versions of a class. All videos, including the older ones, will be available in the playlist you see on the screen. You can find the link of the playlist in the pinned comment section. The purpose of this video series is to help you understand the basic role of the class within the game. I must clarify that it is not a deeply detailed guide. You will watch an interview in a conversational style aimed at answering the fundamental questions of those interested in playing a class. The class masters featured are experienced players who have dedicated thousands of hours to their class and to the Black Desert Online. You may recognize some and not the others, but unfamiliarity does not make them bad players. All the class masters mentioned have proven themselves in Black Desert Online world. Please be respectful when sharing your thoughts. Enjoy watching.
This way, my lord. The path through these mountains didn't prove too troublesome, I hope.
Where's your leader? This is not what was discussed.
Ah. Regretfully, the boss enjoys their secrecy. I've come to act on their behalf.
Then let us take a look at the item first.
Thank you for your understanding, my lord.
At long last. Huh?
Though, my lord, I thought I made it clear that you should come alone. Fan? A member of the Widow School here? Shoot her! Shoot her down! Separa. Your torso arts are mere parlor tricks. Get her! What are you doing here?
Oh my, that's no way to talk to your Unni. Magoria's sea contraband. That's what you're after? A black stone. An object with incredibly high levels of dough. What an irresistible little curio. Don't mind if I do.
Hands off, shadow filth!
Still playing with that silly fan of yours?
Better than that fiendish charm of yours.
Not bad, my dear Dongsang. But what a shame, you're still ever so naive. Little sister, what do I have here? seeing you. So bothersome. Now where could she be?
Wow. Twin sisters, each representing a Do school. An amazing spectacle, equal in beauty and skill. The rumors were true after all.
Who do you think you are?
Me? Some days, a pretty maiden by the market. Other days, a gang's brilliant advisor. And on some days, a fox bearing 9 glorious tails. Gumiho.
Why are you here? Don't you have a gaping chest to go eat the heart out of?
Oh, you stole the words out of my mouth. I was on my way to such a feast when some foolish sisters delayed those plans. But it was entertaining to watch this exchange. Well, I'm off.
Cunning fox, clever fox, what are you scheming? Our performance wasn't a free show.
The only good yogi is a dead one.
Oh, there it is. That special bond between the twins. Then, shall we?
There's no special bond!
Hello guys, welcome. Today's guest is Netherax for Succession Maegu class. Welcome Netherax, how are you?
I'm doing good. Glad to be here. Thank you very much.
Let's start our interview. May you please introduce yourself? Who are you? Where are you from? Which server are you playing at?
I'm Netherax from the European server. I main Succession Maegu, although I often try lots of different classes, mostly during tag events. Please give us another tag event. I mostly play PvE, although these days doing a little bit of PvP, and in the past, several years ago, I used to be a mainly PvP player. Things change, I guess.
So, how did you find out of BDO? What caught your interest to stay in BDO?
So a lot of people would say the same thing. It's the combat system that hooked me. I can't actually remember where I saw BDO, but it was around about the time that the Steam release happened, so back in 2016. I've played a little bit on and off since then. I started off as a Kunoichi and rerolled to Meiwa pretty quickly after I experienced the Berserker outrunning me. That seemed a little bit silly, so I wanted to be the fastest class in the beginning.
Thank you. Have you ever taken a break from playing BDO? If so, what motivated you to come back?
Yeah, so I was quite active until around 2019-ish, playing Meiwa most of the time. I rerolled to Ranger, and Ranger was in a really rubbish state at that time, so I actually took quite a break between like 2019 to 2023. I was away playing Lost Ark for about a year there, and I didn't come back until January last year, so I've been playing actively since then, and I swapped to Maegu pretty quickly after coming back.
How long have you been playing the class you're currently playing? Have you tried any other classes?
Just a little bit after its release, so most of the time that it's been released. I've tried every class nearly in the game. I usually play lots of different classes during tag events, and to be honest, if we had permanent tag event or universal weapons, I wouldn't even have a main. I would play lots of different classes all the time.
Thank you. So, what sets the class you play apart from the other classes? What is the special thing on Maegu?
I think it's easy to get into while having a good amount of depth to it to master. There's a surprising amount of things you can do with some parts of the kit. The abilities for the class flow really well together, and the class is good in all forms of content, so it's not a bad choice anywhere.
Thank you. Is your class Evasion or Damage Reduction, or both playable, and why?
There was recently a huge Global Labs patch that might change everything I'm about to say, so take that with a grain of salt. For the moment, if you're a PvE-focused player, then like every class, damage reduction is the way to go. For PvP, you have several options. The main builds that I'm aware of are going Evasion to be tanky, and be able to trade in like mid-range or close-range spells. Or you can build full DR Glass Cannon to delete people with your range spells. Anybody that hits you will also delete you, so it's very not good for trading. There's also probably some hybrid variations in between that I'm not really aware of, because I'm not super into the PvP build side of things, but as far as I'm concerned, playing Full Blast is the most fun way to play anyway, so.
What is your current gear score? Do you rush progress, or you go with the flow when it comes to gear progression?
So I'm currently 727 gear score. I was 721 2 hours ago, but I hit my pen devil. I don't really care about gear progress, to be honest, other than as a means to push performance in PvE, or be able to just take part in content. Like if I want to do some cap Noble Wars or something, then obviously having enough gear to do that. Yeah, I don't really rush it at all. I just take it as it comes, and it's mostly a means to an end to me.
Thank you. Is your class newbie friendly? On a scale of 1 to 10, how would you rate its difficulty? And if you want, you can separate it as Succession and Awakening.
So I think of classes in terms of skill floor and skill ceiling, so how easy they are to pick up and how much room there is for mastery. I would say Succession Maegu is very friendly for new players. Its skill floor is quite low, something maybe around a 2, and the skill ceiling is somewhere in the middle. It's like a little bit higher than the average of about 5, so maybe around like a 6, mostly because of movement things that you can do and like clone mechanics. Most people just ignore these in PvE, so the skill expression is not really that much in PvE. It's mostly PvP focused. Awakening is not friendly for noobs at all. It's very fast paced. Its AoEs are quite low. Its spirit forging mechanic is very badly explained by the game, and it's quite hard to pick up for new players. It's not quite as difficult as learning some of the older classes that have lots of noob traps in them. And I can only really comment on this for PvE as well. So I would say the skill floor is probably around a 7, and the skill ceiling in PvE is very high and on early and mid game spots, but not quite as high on end game spots. So I would say somewhere between a 7 and a 10 for PvE there. For PvP, I don't know about the skill ceiling for Awakening Maegu.
So we talked in the basics of the Maegu, Succession Awakening. Let's a little bit go deeper. We are curious about your thoughts on the PvE situation of the class you're playing, Succession Maegu. Could you provide us with detailed information separately for early, mid, and end game?
Yep. In early game is quite good, having extremely good AoE with ranged spells, very good movement. The stamina is very manageable, and you can move around quite freely. You can become much faster than the baseline speed by using spells like the Hand Puri, which is the E flow, or Lurking Claws, which is S plus F, along with Clone Swap in some circumstances to make stamina management much better. So there's a lot of skill expression there for being very fast and at moving. In mid game, it's kind of similar, but the performance there is top tier. it's the only class it's consistently behind is Awakening Nova. It's very rewarding as a beginner at mid-game and has a lot of room for improvement. So the same sort of points regarding movement and stamina management apply, but there's also positioning or small combos that you can do to improve things. Several mid-game spots also reward pooling with range spells and mob control, which is another thing Maegu can do very effectively. In endgame, it's quite easy to play. In the current situation, you'll find Succession Magu's damage quite lacking compared to the top meta PvE classes. This is mostly down to the lack of an attack speed buff when you don't have Black Spirit Rage. The baseline DPS of skills is actually quite good on paper, but other classes pull ahead due to having many DPS animation increasing cancels, or attack speed buffs in their kit, or just having higher baseline DPS. You can still get very good results compared to other classes at spots where AoE is a dominating factor, so like Decade of Thornwood, but classes that have AoE and damage will reach the caps at these spots with less gear. It's also possible to improve DPS with back attack uptime using the clone swap very smartly. That's not something that I see other Magus ever really doing, but sadly that's mostly useful at spots where Suck Meg is weak, like Darkseekers, because they're DPS spots and the DPS is kind of weak. The differences with Awakening Mega, I'll mention a little bit about Awakening, is mostly Awakening suffers from the same problem with attack speed, so its DPS is not insane when the Black Spirit Rage is down, but its baseline damage is actually very good. The main problem Awakening Mega has is its AoE is just really small, so it's only really effective at spots where you don't need much AoE.
Thank you very much. I mean, people asking about sometimes, hey, Maegu needs damage for PvE or something, and I'm just trying to convince them I don't think so, mate, because if a class has that much range and AoE together, if you give DPS, you can create like the initial Maegu monster or something. Maybe you can convince people, you are the master, you should maybe explain that situation. PA needs to keep the balance at that point.
Like if they give damage and AoE to the same class?
Yeah, I mean, that's what I'm saying. People, while I'm streaming, people sometimes were expecting like they need more damage on Maegu, 20% more DPS in every skill or something. And I'm trying to convince and trying to explain them, hey, if you give that much damage to that class, they have to take something. They have to take maybe mobility, they have to take some maybe the range, because every skill has like archer range almost. And also AoE is big. So if you give that DPS, you can create a monster, and maybe you can explain that. Because people resist to not understand that part.
Yeah, we already see this kind of situation at tower spots. So like in-game spots where classes that have movement as their weakness don't really have any weaknesses at end-game spots where you don't move. So that's like Witch and Wizard, or like Guardian, where they have insane AoE and they have insane DPS as well. So they can easily reach the clear speed caps at these spots. So Mega having lower DPS outside of Black Spirit Rage. So Mega's DPS isn't actually bad, not good outside of Black Spirit Rage, and endgame spots tend to starve you of that. So buffing the damage isn't the way to go, because then if you buff the damage, then it becomes extremely overpowered during Black Spirit Rage. The main problem is just the DPS when you don't have Black Spirit Rage, just because you don't have an attack speed buff with the class. Yeah, I don't think buffing the damage is the way to go. Yeah, that would just be really, really broken. I mean, we already saw a situation where Megu's unique strengths with its ranged capabilities and good movement with Tongue Grid Ruins. We already saw that situation where it was way too strong. Imagine it had more damage in that situation.
The situation at the Tongue Grid Ruins, I also gave that example to people. At Tongue Grid Ruins, you don't need that much big DPS, big damage pool to kill the mobs. You just go in, for example, I'm just giving here numbers, you need 50,000 damage. Yes, class has that damage in her skill kit, but that's all. You use all your skills and mob is just clearly dying. And you're understanding that if you have that damage, class is doing top tier, like not now, but before the Tongue Grid Ruins patch, the top tier class was Succession Maegu. It's because AoE is no problem, movement is good, like range damage is okay. It was some kind of cheat program. So people non-stop expecting that from PA, buff more, buff more. They want to kill DSR like that. They want to kill Gaifen like that. They did actually. And the first release of Maegu, class was actually like that. That's why they nerfed. Because they created a monster in PvP and PvE. They gave everything in one class. That's why they just 3 or 4 times nerfed the class. I'm not saying that she's like top tier and everything, but we have to think that if we give that much thing, if you give that much different things in the one class, if you just put in one box or something, you create a monster.
Yeah, back when Mega was released, there wasn't any like Dekia or Illikia spots. So the spots that you could do were all the mid game spots at the moment. Like you got Serendia Elvia, Calphine Elvia, you got Krituga, you got Sakraya. You had some spots like Crypt and Ash, but they weren't quite as good as they are now. I mean, Crypt was still insane back then because of making Tet Debos. But Mega was good at all of these. Mega's strengths excelled at all of these spots. Just because of like actual DPS wasn't the most important thing at any of these spots really. But then they added Dekia and Ulikita, and DPS became a lot more important.
Okay.
I guess the point was it was super overpowered back when it was released, and when that was the PvE. When that was the PvE meta, those spots were the PvE meta. It was really overpowered compared to other classes there.
Yeah.
I don't think that's the case anymore because all other classes got buffed at the same time as Mega getting nerfed.
People want to see that again. People want to make her like broken again.
Let's go for PvP. We are curious about your thoughts on the PvP situation of Succession Maegu. Could you provide us with detailed information separately for 1v1, 1vx, AOS, 5v5, Guild League, Siege, War of the Roses?
The dynamics of PvP might also significantly change since we're getting this DR and Invasion update very soon. So I'll go through each of them. 1v1 dynamics, as far as I'm experienced with, are very matchup, gear, and build dependent, and quite polarizing. So if you outgear somebody as a Succession Maegu, or you have the right build against them. So say they're like an evasion stacker, and you have way more than enough accuracy to kill them. And then Succession Maegu is extremely overbearing to play against. If you can just blow them up, like it's very, very easy to kill people standing at range without them being able to get to you. But if they outgear you or have a counter build, because that's all Maegu really does is blow people up. You don't really have a grab or any extended combos or really a lot of super armor, frontal guard trading options. The matchup becomes very difficult or impossible to play. Also, some matchups are stalemate. If you can't kill them, they're stalemate. If the class just can't catch you. Clone swap is really oppressive towards low mobility classes. That's things like I believe that's things like Sorceress. Although I don't have that much experience doing 1v1s with a variety of different classes. So there might be exceptional players on these classes that can overcome that sort of disadvantage. I'm not really sure. 1vx for Mega is better than most classes due to how slippery you are and how much damage you can run to blow people up. Arena of Solari, I haven't really done much. All I can say really is it seems really solid there. I do worry about its effectiveness in high elo matches, where the slower pacing and lack of grab or support utility might be a bit of a disadvantage, but that might be unfounded. As far as I've seen, it looks solid. 5v5 is really good. Definitely one of the top tier classes there. You can either play as a disruptor with like a defensive build, or you can be like a ranged assassin type with the full damage build. Same with Guild League. Guild League is also extremely good. You can put out a very significant amount of damage and pressure while being very hard to catch. Node and Siege Wars, the range split damage, like Shift Q and Shift LMB, it makes you less of a threat to groups than something like an Archer, but you still have solid damage to groups of people at range with the CC built in as well, and you still have really good follow-up damage at mid and close range, although you have to be careful about when you go in to do that if you're playing squishy. And you can still pick off isolated or very few small groups of targets easily with the ranged spells. I can't say anything about War of the Roses because I've never done it, but from the clips I've seen of it, it looks like the power dynamics there are crazy, and it's just a farm simulator, so I guess it's because of the AoE, it's probably insane there. For Awakening, the only thing I can really say about Awakening is the 10% Black Spirit Rage is obviously overpowered, and it looks like they're actually addressing that in the Global Labs patch. They're making it not usable on cooldown, so that spamming the 10% BSR is going to go away. It's getting fixed. So rip for Awakening players. It's probably still good after that.
On PvP, I'm talking with other guild masters especially, and they are actually looking, in my server, I'm not sure about other servers, they're actually looking for large-scale Succession Maegu players, pro Succession Maegu players, because people showing that few of the Maegus in my server, Maegu is very good for Siege and Node or War of the Roses if you have experience, if you know how to play the game. It's different version of like Succession Witch and Wizard. You just reposition, find yourself a good spot and good point, a good spot on the wall or something. Bam, 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 bam. You non-stop create DPS and big AoE CCs.
Yeah, the ranged CCs with massive AoE, if you're very good at knowing how to like weave through a fight, it can be very hard to track you, especially because of the clone swap. And even if you don't have the damage to say you shoot like 5 people and then your Fox Flare does 20% damage to them all because of split damage. Even in that situation where you don't blow them up instantly, you can still get massive ranged CC on people that others can follow up on. So amount that you can impact a fight will combined with how slippery you are, is really, really strong. It's definitely one of the top classes for the more people you get in the fight, basically.
3 days ago, I talked with a guildmaster. He said that I want to just create a Maegu team, 10 Maegus, and in that platoon there will be 2 Shies and a few Witch and Wizards for attack speed buff or something. And they said that they want to use them for siege, and they just did field tests. That's what he said, and he saw that for only 3 or 4 Maegus, they were doing insane amount of job. They not let the opponents to push. They non-stop just, like they just separated like in different points, non-stop skill bombing to your enemy with shy buff. And it's hilarious. Like, it's so irritating. No one cares about damage at that point. If they just hit at one point, he said that like 4 Maegu is just clearing entire pack. It's at same point.
That's what he said.
Yeah, you can throw out so much ranged CC. It's mental, especially given the AoEs. And then you don't know if there's like multiple of them, you don't know which ones are clones and which ones are real, so you don't know where to chase. It's very disorienting to play against.
I don't know why people in other servers looking for that, but maybe old traditions, they still using Witch and Wizards in the same way.
Well, the Maegu doesn't bring any utility for the team as well, so you still need some of those classes. And also, you kind of need shy buffs, or at least a speed spell on Maegu. Same as in PvE. The class is actually quite slow if you don't have any attack speed buffs. The animations are quite long, so you don't have any attack speed built in.
So, I think we talk about PvP enough. Is there a significant strong aspect of the class you're playing? Or significant weakness? What is strongest thing? What is weakest thing?
So definitely the strongest thing is the AoE for Succession Maegu. The movement is also really strong, which is what makes these combination of things is what makes it really, really good in mid-game PvE and early game as well, to some degree, and also as one of its main strengths in PvP as well. Plus the being ranged part is also quite important for PvP. The biggest weakness is definitely, as I've mentioned a few times, the lack of an attack speed buff. Your animation's quite slow when you don't have Black Spirit Rage or someone around to buff you, so with no speed spell or shy around. When you really, really need high DPS and you don't have Black Spirit Rage up, it becomes very obvious, and this is most obvious at endgame PvE. In PvP, I don't think, this is going to sound silly to say, but I don't think the class has any glaring weaknesses. You don't really have any combo potential or a grab, so you can't really kill really tanky targets on your own. Like if someone's a full evasion meme or a full DR, and you don't have enough damage to kill them on your own. But I wouldn't really say that's a weakness unique to Maegu, because a lot of classes suffer from this. So yeah, there isn't really any glaring weakness to the class.
Thank you. Are there any classes that clearly dominate the class you're playing, or you can dominate them? In other words, the counter matchups for you and for your enemies.
In terms of direct class counters, there's nothing that, like, if you see it, you want to alt F4. There are definitely fights that you want to avoid, though I wouldn't say anything completely dominates Succession Maegu. The most annoying ones are the ones that can kill you off screen or before you react. Anybody that's like an archer killing you from off screen, that's kind of the same for everyone though, or like a Awakened Nova or Awakened Tricania rushing you from render distance in PvP. The other classes that you really struggle against and you want to avoid fighting are like Awakened Musa and Sakwusa. The classes where it's like they will win trades against you and you can't really, they're very difficult to catch as well. Anybody that has like a gear or build advantage against you where you don't have high damage pressure is going to be very hard or impossible to fight. But that's not really a mega unique thing. Yeah, anything that is strong trades that can keep on you is difficult.
Thank you. Is there a mechanics or skill in your class that you would like to be buffed or nerfed?
So interestingly, there were only 2 things I wanted changed about Maegu, for PvE at least, and they're doing one of them on the Global Lab. So I wanted them to increase the act buff duration, but it turns out they're just removing it. They're removing the act buff and making it baseline, which is a nice quality of life change, because at the moment it's 5 seconds long, which is just annoyingly short. The only other thing I'd want is some kind of attack speed buff, specifically for PvE. I think it shouldn't affect PvP, because that is a weakness that should exist for Maegu in PvP, so it should be inaccessible in PvP. So something like, if you kill a target, you get 10 seconds of 10% attack speed. You could also make that only work on mobs or something. Actually, I'm not really sure what to nerf about the class, if anything at all. It's on the strong side for mid-game spots in PvE, but the balance in mid-game is a bit of a mess these days anyway, when you've got something like Awakening Nova just like walking around destroying everyone. In terms of PvP, I wouldn't say I'm experienced enough to say whether it needs buffs or nerfs, really. There are some opinions I have that are potentially worth thinking about, but I'm not sure I've not got enough experience to say. So like I think the range damage on single targets at the moment is too high. Like if you're full blast, and you can literally like one spell a squishy if they're standing on their own, and you get a CC on them. So like Fox Flare, if it knocks them down, the rest of the damage will be down attack, and it will literally one shot them. I also feel like the ranged split damage on blobs feels like you're doing nothing. It feels like because it does 20% to all 5 of them, it feels like you're just a CC bot when you're hitting blobs. But honestly, I think that's actually healthy for the game, and I'd rather that was the norm for ranged classes. It doesn't make any sense that an archer can shoot a blob and kill most of them. Also, the other thing I have noted down is the 10% awakening AG BSR needs nerfed, but it looks like they're doing that already, so that's good. There's a bunch of changes I would do for Awakenings PvE, but to be honest, Awakenings PvE is mostly a struggle because of AoE, and I don't think they want to change that because of PvP implications. So probably just skip that.
I mean, Awakening is mostly, it's my opinion. Awakening is mostly magic type of assassin.
Yeah, it definitely plays like an assassin.
So another question: can we get a brief summary of good and bad things of Succession Maegu? Let's say that I want to reroll the Succession Maegu. What Maegu, Succession Maegu, can offer me?
It's good at pretty much everything in the game, and it is satisfying to play. So it's good at early game PvE. It's one of the top choices for mid game PvE, and although it's got some weakness at end game, it's still good everywhere. It's not like bottom tier anywhere. So it's good at everything basically. And the same goes for PvP. It's top tier in some forms of PvP, notably the larger scale, and it's still good in all the other forms, so like 1v1 and stuff. There's not any content in the game that taking Maegu to is totally hard ending, so it's a good choice.
Thank you. Thanks for all the infos about Maegu. Let's talk about BDO itself. What are your thoughts on BDO, the current situation of the game, from past until now?
Oh boy, there's so many things to talk about here. Let's start with the good things. The fact that they've done a lot of variety of different content updates, things like Boss Shrine, things like the dungeon, things like new grind spots, adding a bunch of new systems and updating some of the existing systems. So like the Magnus is a good change. Changing the central market was one of the greatest changes they've ever done. The old one was so terrible. I'm glad that nobody has to experience that anymore. The crystal protection change from being fed to monsters was also a great change that I wish they'd just done years and years ago. I do feel like they spend a lot of time on new stuff that doesn't appeal to a lot of the audience that's already playing the game. So I feel like they spend a lot of time on things like quests. In my experience, at least, most of the players of the game skip most of it. I do feel like they make more generally good decisions than bad ones, but that we're missing out on the game's potential. I wish they'd be more focused on existing systems and better solutions to problems we've had for a long time. So some examples are, it's good that they've added Black Shrine. It's overall a great idea, but I don't think mixing leaderboards with the RNG mechanics they have is a good idea. I also don't think the damage scaling makes any sense at all. It's very unintuitive. A lot of the boss patterns are frustrating to deal with, and you can randomly get bosses like iframing a lot. Like I really love when you get Sonakshi to 2% and then she iframes for 2 minutes straight. That's great fun. The fight design could just use a lot of work really for Boss Shrine. They should just have a look at other games that have really well designed bosses and copy ideas from there and just iterate with it iterate with the players on it and improve it. The dungeon's also decent, but I think the mechanics are a little bit weird. I think just simpler mechanics that are more intuitive but challenging would be nice. You don't really need to do anything complicated. You just need to make a dungeon that is intuitive and challenging and let the combat system of the game carry it. You don't need all these like weird puzzles and stuff. Contrary to what a lot of people might think because I'm a PvEer, I think the Marnie realm is actually a band-aid that they should remove. The grind regions in the game, I think, just need more viable rotations. It's really stupid that at some areas, the Marnie Realm is the best rotation. So like at, say, Foggins or Star's End, the Marnie Realm being the best rotation makes no sense at all. And then in other areas, the Marnie Realm is really bad, unusably bad. So like Akmin and Hystria, the Marnie Room is literally ending yourself. Also, like Sakraya, it's not very good for the top classes, although it's decent for most classes. Some of the normal rotations in the game are just way too long because spawn rates are out of date. So like doing 3 rooms in Sakraya just doesn't make any sense. Just increase the spawn rate of these spots so that you can do shorter rotations. That also means that there's more spots for people to occupy. You don't need to have separate Marnie realms and have everyone instanced, because it's not really open world, and if you do that. Talking about open world, we have the open world PvP situation. I don't think the status quo is bad for most players, although open world PvP is quite dead now outside of Arsha, unless you go red. Personally, I'm not don't care too much about that, but I really think they should come up with some kind of better system than we have now so that the open world PvPers are happier than they are now. Life skills, lots of life skills need attention. The only really good ones at the moment, as far as I'm aware, are cooking, alchemy, and horse training. Okay, now we get to grind spots. A large portion of the community is happy with the more recent grind spots that have been added to the game, so Dekia and Ulukita spots. I find them uninteresting, mostly because they're quite easy to cap. In Ulukita, Dark Seekers was fun on release, but they've reworked it twice, and each time they've made it worse. Now it's just a casino spot, which is really depressing if you don't get any of the new Tide events. You get loads of trash from those Tide events if you do get them, so your performance is basically determined by RNG now. Tungrid Ruins and City of the Dead, the mechanics that they made for these spots just make them less fun to grind. I don't get what they were going for there. The Tungrid Ruins rework, I feel like, improved the situation. It's not quite as restrictive to classes that have the good transfer spells, but I still think it's a kind of basic spot that's not very fun to grind. It's kind of boring with very little room to optimize. I would really like PA to recognize that a portion of the player base likes spots where you can improve your performance and it's not just determined by AP and RNG. I don't really like mindlessly bashing a combo over and over without moving at tower spots. I'm not saying that we should remove these spots or stop doing them. I just wish there was more variety of different kinds of spots. So a good example of spots that I really like are like Jade Starlight or Krituga. Those spots don't really have, or Krituga at least doesn't really have any complicated mechanics. It's a non-uniform layout of mobs that you can make a nice route through and get really good at doing it. I wish they would make more endgame spots like that. Like, please make an endgame Sakraya. I really like Sakraya. Just don't make a Dekia version, thank you. No more Dekia, please. We've got a lot of Dekia. And all of this stuff I've listed is without even touching on class balance. I really wish they would seek out the help of experienced players on each class to try and improve this. It's definitely very difficult to gather quality feedback due to people being biased or their lack of knowledge about relative power with other classes, but I really think it's not impossible and they should try to do it. Well, that was a long answer. Those are my thoughts.
They were amazing. I think you answered the questions, the first part of the next question. What do you think that PA companies does well and bad? You already answered it overall. But I have one thing to add to that question. If you were in charge, let's say that you're a new Mr. J tomorrow, okay? One thing to add and one thing to remove. Please take your time and answer this question.
I do have a couple of notes about this question as well. I didn't want to overflow everything into the previous question. So I'll start with the thing that I would add and what I would remove. There's a clear winner for what I would add, and that is universal weapons. So that there's no more waiting for tag events to try different classes. I'd really like to just be able to try other classes without spending 5 billion every time. Like, come on, man. In terms of remove, there's quite a few choices. Probably get some points with the PvPers for mentioning this one, but resistances are really stupid, and I've always hated them. Since way back in like 2017, resistances in PvP just make no sense. That's probably the number one thing that I would remove. The other main thing that I really don't like is downgrades when you enhance, especially accessories with crons. It's really despair. It increases the variance of things happening so much that you get people that just go a long period of time of just downgrading everything and getting totally wrecked by it, and you get other people that just get completely carried and never see a downgrade. There's a bunch of less impactful things that you could remove, but I think those are the two main ones that I think are negative to the game. There's some other points that I made about things that I would do if I was in charge that aren't an addition or removal. In terms of the company itself, I feel like they're good at improving the quality of life systems, but they're not very good at communicating updates. And sometimes they'll just say things and then never do them. Like recently you saw about the Black Star weapon, colouring the Black Star weapons. Where did that go? Just disappeared into the void. Some things I would do if I was in charge that aren't additions, I would get them to work on isolating animations from FPS. I think this would also impact hit starter issues that exist in the game, which I know a lot of people, especially PvPers, don't like. It negatively impacts. Although I do suspect that, as a developer myself, I suspect that because of the quality of the code base, that's actually going to be an extremely difficult thing to do. I know they tried in the past to isolate animations from FPS and it created other issues. More active and collaborative approach to class balance, as I mentioned at the end of the last question. The last one's an easy one where just spend more time optimizing the game's performance. One of the main reasons I don't really like Node Wars much these days is just because of stutters. When you get like a blob pushing you and then they all load in at once and you get like a a frame drop for like a second and you just die in it because of render distance engaged classes is super frustrating and not really a fun experience. I would really like for them to spend time on optimizing that. It does look like they are going in that direction somewhat with the hit reduction. So we'll just have to wait and see if that makes a difference.
Thank you. What advice would you like to give to newbies, returnees, and other players in the game?
So the main advice would be do what you enjoy in the game and take your time with it. The game's a sandbox. There's no rush to get to end game or to get a specific gear goal unless that's what you want to do. That's what you enjoy. The game's a marathon. There's a lot you can do in the game without huge time investment. You can do life skills. You can do all the different forms of cap stuff. The grinding doesn't really change an insane amount between early, mid game, and late game. It's different mobs and there are different levels of tankiness, so the dynamics change a bit. Although I'd actually say end game grinding is more boring than mid game grinding, so rushing to it doesn't really make much point. There's a lot of different content for a variety of different players. Don't let anybody tell you you're enjoying the game in the wrong way.
Thank you. You're reaching the end of the interview. Is there anything else you would like to add before we finish?
Not really. I feel like I've waffled a lot, so that was a lot of talking. Shout out to everyone else in Bugcat, Looney Storm, Pavel, Gamaru, and the rest of the gang. And thanks for having me on, Quindaya.
Guys, now you're on the screen. You see Maegu Netherax social links. He's not that much offline streaming, but he's also streaming on Twitch. Please go click that follow button on Twitch. On the other hand, he's uploading videos on YouTube almost every week, almost every day. Sometimes it depends his mood, but click that YouTube link and also subscribe. You can find the links in the description section. You will not regret, trust me. Netherax is a cool guy and you will love him, and also his guides, because in his guides he really shows like everything in min-max situation. You will like and you will understand what he's doing, what his goal, and his guides are amazing. You're gonna love it. Thank you so much, Netherax.
Thanks everyone. Thanks for having me on. Hope you learned something from this and hope it was useful.
Alright guys, do not forget, BDO is just a game. Have a nice game.